I'm going to describe a deal you've lost that you'll recognize fast. The lead comes in, the team does what they're supposed to do, and then the lead disappears. No fight, no dramatic, we chose someone else, just gone. And the worst part is when you open the CRM, it looks like everyone worked really hard. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the exact moment when the deal dies and the first sentence that kills it. Then I'm going to show you why your CRM hides it and what to do instead. Hi, I'm Cristian. I've helped hundreds of business owners in 14 countries increase sales over the past 25 years. We build AI automation systems for speed to lead and database revival. So here's a question. What if the deal didn't die in your funnel at all, but in the hidden gap that your CRM makes look normal? That's what makes this so maddening. Your CRM looks busy. Calls logged, emails sent, notes everywhere. It's like walking past a treadmill and thinking, wow, someone ran 5 miles, and then realizing that the treadmill wasn't plugged in the first place. A ton of movement with zero distance. If your CRM shows effort but revenue doesn't move, what are you really measuring? Here's another question most founders never ask. If I took your last 20 inbound leads and lined them up by response time, how many died before your first real message even went out? And the language always sounds the same. Left voicemail, send follow-up, touch base, checking in. It's a corporate dialect of please respond so my dashboard stops yelling at me. This is a moment where most founders land on the simplest explanation. The lead wasn't serious. The lead quality was bad. Marketing must be off. Sales must be sloppy. Something must be wrong with the top of the funnel. Most of the time, the top of the funnel did its job. The leak happened after the lead shows up. When you've seen enough pipelines, you stop believing in mystery leads and you start looking for timing and conversation design because that's where deals disappear. This begs the question, what if you're not losing leads because your team is slow, but because your first message makes the buyer mentally exit the conversation? Let me show you what I mean by looking at 2 messages. Same day, same company, only the opener changes. First, the kind of opener that looks responsible and polite in the CRM and still loses. It's professional, but it also asks the buyer to do the hardest thing in business, which is to restart their own urgency. It sounds like, hi, just following up on your inquiry. Let me know if you have any questions. Nothing is technically wrong with that sentence. That's what makes it dangerous. It assumes the buyer is still in the same mood they were when they filled out the form. It assumes their day didn't happen. It assumes they didn't open 5 other tabs, take 2 meetings, get pulled into solving a fire, and forget why they filled out the form in the first place. Now compare it to an opener that actually starts a conversation while the buyer is still present. Peter, hi, it's John from Acme Associates. We got a message you reached, but I didn't want to bother you. I hope texting is okay. Are you still looking for help with your sales? That message does something that most scripts don't. It acknowledges the buyer's reality. It doesn't force them into a formal dance. It gives them a simple yes or no, and it doesn't sound like it came from a template folder called follow-up sequence number 3 final. Here's the funny part. Companies will spend months optimizing ads, landing pages, and offers, and the first message they send to a real human being sounds like it was written by a printer that's low on ink. The lead responds to your marketing because they're human, but when you greet them like a ticket number, they're gone. Now, let's make this about numbers because this is where people underestimate this gap. The MIT Lead Response Management Study found the odds of contacting a lead are 100 times higher if you attempt contact within 5 minutes versus 30 minutes. It also found the odds drop by 5 times going from 5 minutes to 10 minutes. This is also why the problem is so hard to see from inside the company internally. Everything feels responsible, a lead comes in, and the system does what systems do. It creates tasks, it assigns owners, it updates statuses, it logs activity, it creates proof that work happened. Buyers don't buy proof of work. Buyers buy confidence, clarity, and timing. From the buyer side, the experience is simple. They raise their hand, and then nothing happened. Then later, a generic message shows up asking them to reopen the mental file they already closed. That's why follow-up is often just delayed interruption. Not because your team is bad, because the process treats inbound intent in a robotic way. And this is where the CRM becomes a trap. It gives you a false sense of control. It's organized, it's documented, it's trackable. It makes you feel like you're doing something about the lead, even when the buyer has already moved on. What if you only get a tiny slice of the buyer's attention during the entire buying process, and your team keeps showing up after your slice is already gone? Gartner says buyers typically spend only 17% of their time meeting with potential suppliers when they're considering a purchase. That's not 17% of their work week, it's 17% of the buying process. The other 83% is internal alignment, budget, stakeholders, procurement, legal research, and people forwarding your link to someone else with zero context like it's a cryptic message. And that 17% is split across vendors. So your share of the buyer's attention can become single digits really fast if you show up late. You're not losing a lead, you're missing your slice of a small window and then sending a polite email to a closed tab. Now, here's a twist that separates amateurs from real operators. Speed alone doesn't fix it. You can respond fast and still lose if your first message is weak. Speed without relevance just means you're ignored faster. It's like being the first person to show up to a conversation and then immediately proving that you didn't pay attention to what they were saying. This is why an opener like the one I shared works. It's not fancy, it's not hype. It gives the buyer an easy path. It's respectful without being timid. It doesn't ask them to do work. It invites them into a real exchange. And this is where the next stat matters, because it explains why the first message isn't just a checkmark on your CRM, it's a preview of your entire company. Salesforce cites research showing 80% of customers consider the entire experience of the company provides as important as its products and services. So your first interaction isn't follow up, it's a preview of what working with you feels like. If your first impression is delayed and generic, the preview of your company is, this is going to be slow and I'm going to have to carry the entire conversation. Most buyers won't do emotional labor for a stranger. They won't re-explain the problem from scratch because you arrived late. They won't restart their urgency because you sent a polite template. They just move on. So when a lead goes quiet, the deal usually didn't die at the moment they stopped responding. That's the symptom. The deal died earlier when the buyer's internal conversation ended before your external conversation began. That's why founders get stuck blaming lead quality. Lead quality is a comforting explanation because it doesn't require changing operations. Timing does. Here's the simplest diagnostic you can do without changing your entire business process. Look at the message the lead receives in the first 5 minutes. Not what your team intended, not what the automation platform claims, what the lead actually saw in the first 5 minutes. Does it sound like a person who noticed them? Or does it sound like a process announcing itself? Does it make it easy to reply, or does it ask them to reconstruct their urgency from memory? Does it start a conversation, or does it start paperwork? If you want to pressure test this in your funnel, I do short diagnostic sessions where we look at your timestamps, your first message, and where conversations collapse. No demos, no pitches, just clarity. Click the link underneath this video. I would love to show you how many more sales you can close this year.